Today's guest is Ralph Estep Jr. Ralph works with creators who look successful on the outside, but feel stressed, unsure, and overwhelmed about money behind the scenes. And in this episode, he brings that same clarity to podcasting for business. We talk about why podcasting isn't necessarily a top of funnel growth hack, but a mid to bottom funnel trust builder, why investing in production actually protects your credibility, and how financial professionals should think about CTAs that help listeners instead of pushing them. If you've ever wondered how your podcast fits into your marketing budget, how to nurture listeners into qualified leads, or whether your show is really doing its job, listen all the way through. This episode will sharpen how you think about podcasting, money, and long-term growth. You're listening to Podcasting for Financial Professionals, the show where smart business owners learn how to use podcasting as a serious growth tool, not just another marketing experiment. I'm Virginia Elder, podcast strategist and founder of Podcast Abundance. Since 2019, I've helped professionals stop guessing with their podcast and instead build a show that increases their authority, expands reach, and generates leads for their business. If you've ever wondered whether your podcast is actually generating leads or if you're just kind of publishing episodes and hoping for the best, you're not alone. And the issue usually isn't the content. It's that no one ever showed you what to track. Your podcast builds authority, warms leads, expands your reach, and creates opportunities long before someone ever hires you. But if you're only watching download numbers, you're missing most of the ROI. That's why I created the Podcast ROI Metrics Tracker, a free tool that helps you track 50 plus non-traditional metrics so you can finally see what your podcast is really doing for your business. Grab it now at podcastabundance.com/ROI-tracker. All right, let's get into the episode. Ralph, thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, thank you, Virginia. I sure appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk to your audience.
Not only are you an accountant, but you also have a podcast. So you are creating for your business, but you also serve creators. So there's this really cool circle of creation and business going on here. Would you mind walking us through who you serve, what you do, and just kind of that high-level business overview?
Yeah, I'm a licensed accountant. I've been doing accounting work for 30 years. I actually started when I was about 8. I grew up in the accounting realm, so this is what I know. And I've had my own accounting practice. And I guess about 4 or 5 years ago, I got into the podcasting thing. And this past year, I said, you know what? There is a big group of people who are content creators who don't understand the money side of this. There is an opportunity for me to serve those people. And that was really my passion at this point. I want to go out and help content creators. I call myself the content creators accountant because my goal is they say, oh yeah, Ralph, that's the guy you got to talk to. And the reason that I connect with them is because I'm not only an accountant, I got those skill set, but I'm also a creator. So I know what it's like. I call it money chaos or content creator money chaos. And you got 15 income streams. You got all kinds of things all mixed together. So I can speak to them in their language because I live in that same realm with them. So that's where my connection is. And I want to meet them where they are with the things that they're doing on a daily basis.
So I can only assume that you didn't always serve creators because you've got all these years of practice behind you. And this content creator title is kind of new nowadays. So give us a brief overview of, what the business was like when you started out, maybe if you had or didn't have an ideal client, and how you transitioned over, became a content creator. I think there's another podcast in there, at least one, and kind of guide us to current day.
Sure. I actually have 4 podcasts.
Oh my gosh.
So we'll start off here. Back in 2017, I was sitting in my accounting practice and iHeartMedia came into me and they said, hey, we'd love to put you on the radio. You seem like somebody that can talk. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I can talk. My wife says you talk too much, but that's a whole nother discussion. So I said, sure. So they said, well, we're going to give you some time slots on Saturday mornings. And we just want you to talk about finance. We want you to talk about accounting and tax. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And they said, so here's what we're going to do. You give us 28 minutes of content. Virginia, I had no idea what I was doing. I was using GarageBand. I had a Sennheiser headset. If I go back and listen to those now, I'm like, that's a train wreck. Whoever suffered through that, I feel so bad for them. But so what I did was I said, well, and they said, what you can do is you can put this into smaller components and create this podcast. I said, oh, this sounds kind of cool. So this, because the first thing I did, I heard podcast. Oh, that's a big way to make money, right? I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to jump into this economy. Well, guess what? That's not how it plays out. So I launched my first podcast. It was called Ask Ralph. And the whole idea was my accounting clients, I always say to them, just ask Ralph, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. So I said, well, I can launch this podcast that would do the same thing. So I had this great idea. I'm going to launch this Ask Ralph podcast. Well, I guess it went on for about a year and I had about 20 downloads per episode. And I'm thinking, this is just not getting anywhere. Now, it was bringing in reinforcements to my clients. People say, oh, you can catch Ralph on Saturday mornings, and they could download the app. I had an app built and all that sort of thing. I kind of let it go after a while, Virginia. I was like, this is not working anymore. And then back in 2023, I decided in November, I said, I feel like this urge to go podcasting again. And it's funny, I kept Libsyn alive, so my content was still out there. And I decided in November 2023, I'm going to do this again. But this time, I'm going all in, Virginia. I'm doing a daily show. A friend of mine said, you got to do it for 3 years. So on that day, I said, I'm going to do this every day for 3 years. So in earnest, I started. Now, I will be honest with you. When I first started, I had a daily show. It was about an hour long. And talk about production. And I was doing it all myself. I was recording it, trying to put it together. Oh, it was a disaster, right? So fast forward a couple of months, I joined something called the School of Podcasting with a good friend of mine, Dave Jackson. And Dave and I have kind of become friends. And he said, Ralph, he says, I'm going to be honest with you. What is Ralph? Who's Ask Ralph? And he said, you understand you've created this hurdle for yourself. Like, who's Ralph? He said, if you were Dave Ramsey, oh, sure, everybody knows who Dave Ramsey is. Or you're somebody celebrity. He goes, who are you? And I said, Dave, that's a really good point. And he says, what is the niche you're really trying to speak to? And I said, I want to help individual people improve their finances. And I think there's a huge connection between faith and finance. He said, speak to your audience. I said, I'm going to rebrand the show and I'm going to call it Financially Confident Christian. And my thought process was, what's the outcome to them? I wanted them to be a financially confident Christian. So I've been doing that every day. It'll be 3 years this November, in earnest every day. Well, then I get a little bit farther into it and I decide, you know what? This show doesn't really speak to my business clients. So I said, well, I'm going to launch something new. And I came up with this idea I'm going to launch called Grit and Growth Business. And Grit and Growth Business was going to be a weekly live show. And doing a live show, I got the eCam software. I've gotten better microphones. I actually built a studio here in my office now. So I've got all the technology. At the same time, I hired a production team. And that's been a godsend because they produce all this stuff. I sit here in front of the camera and record it and they go from there with it. So I did the Grit and Growth Business. And then I'm also, like I said, I'm a passionate guy. I do a weekly sermon show called Truth Unveiled with Ralph. And I guess it was back in November this past year. I said, you know what? I could really serve the content creator. I'd gone to a couple of podcasting conferences. And the thing I noticed, there was nobody around showing these content creators how to get past this money chaos that they all live in. Here I am with 30 years of accounting experience. And I understand the content creator realm. Why don't I dive into it? That's a long answer to a simple question, Virginia. But that's what leads me to today, because I saw an opportunity to help people because these folks have a passion for what they're talking about, but they don't really have, I call it systems. They don't have the systems in place to really make this work for them.
Okay, so I want to pull out a few things that may have been glazed over by listeners here. You started out with a great idea. It worked for a while-ish, right? And then a third party came in and said, you know what? This isn't speaking to your ideal audience, and here's why. And the title of your show was adjusted to literally call out who should be listening and the benefit they should receive. It's a big clue to anybody listening. If the title of your show is not clear as to who should be listening and what benefit they're getting, then we need to reevaluate. Another thing that I love about your story is that, this isn't your first rodeo. You've done a podcast, you dropped it, maybe you revived it along the way, you started a different one, then you said, oh, I could help these people over here. I'm passionate about this thing. And you've been testing and trying and, let's just say, experimenting in a way, like passionately experimenting to help different crowds of people for years. And the thing that's just, replayed over and over and over that everybody probably gets tired of hearing is that you don't just launch a show and suddenly have thousands of downloads and be a celebrity. Like you mentioned Dave Ramsey, like this household name. It just doesn't happen for most of us. And until then, that's where you depend on consistency, sustainability, your team helping you produce episodes. Like you said, that's a godsend because it relieves a lot of the pressure off of you and frees up your time. There are tidbits throughout your story that I want folks to really identify with and receive as advice. So something I do want to ask you about, though, is when you noticed that these content creators aren't really being guided from a content creator who knows about business finances, personal finances. Did you do any research in that space? Did you look around and find some folks who are doing it and then feel intimidated in any way? Or did you just jump straight in and say I don't care if somebody else is doing it across the country, I'm going to do it anyway? How did that play out?
So Virginia, to be very honest with you, I did no background research at all because I just said, you know what? I can speak to people. I've built relationships with my clients over 30 years. And that's what we're really in. We're really in the relationship business. I saw an opportunity because I was working with a few content creators that reached out to me and they said, Ralph, my books are a mess. I just don't know what to do here. And it is a challenge. So no, I didn't really do a lot of background because I just knew this could work. After I launched the show and I started to see that it was working, what I noticed is there is really not a lot of people doing it, actually. There's not a lot of people that speak to that chaos that content creators find themselves in. And because it's funny, I just recorded the show today. And what people don't understand is that it's not like you get a W-2. It's not like you've got a paycheck. And so the content creator is living in a completely different world. But I wanted to speak to one thing about my passion with this. If you're new to this content creator deal, number one thing you've got to understand is what is your why? Because that's the thing that has evolved for me over time. My why when I first started is not the same why I have now. And as you talked about, as I evolved through this process, I learned a lot along the way. Listen, when I work with other content creators, the first thing I say to them is understand your why. Second thing, understand how you measure success. Because if you think you're going to dive in, you're going to have 10,000 downloads, you're going to have sponsorships, affiliate income, all this kind of stuff, guess what? It's not going to happen. Not right away, not in 3 years, maybe not in 10 years. You can sell your own products. You can sell relationships. You can build your coaching programs and all that sort of thing. But most people, Virginia, aren't going to be that person that strikes the match and boom, it goes up like that. You're not going to be a Joe Rogan. You're not going to be one of these Mr. Beast or any of these other folks. But you have to understand at the front end, this is my why and this is how I measured it. And that was a struggle for me because when I first started out, I thought, oh, my why is I'm going to get 10,000 downloads. This is no problem. I can speak. I've got good people around me. And then it didn't happen. And I was like, oh, I got to go back to how do I measure this? And the way that I measure it now, if I can help one person, if I can build that relationship with one person, because I look at content creation kind of backwards now. I really don't believe that content creation is the discovery engine. For me, I'm going to discover you on LinkedIn. I'm going to discover you. Somebody's going to hand you a business card. Do we even do business cards? But you understand, there's going to be that referral connection. My content reinforces that. And I think that's where we are going to be effective, especially as financial professionals. If you think you're going to launch a podcast and people are just going to find you, it's likely not going to happen. But when you have that relationship and you build up that referral network, somebody will go back and listen to your stuff. And that's what I saw in this content creator realm is that I can help people do that.
Quick pause here because you host a podcast for your business, so this matters. Most podcast hosts judge their success by downloads or whether someone hires them directly from their show. But that's not how podcasting actually works. Your show is building authority, warming leads, improving visibility, and creating opportunities long before a sales conversation happens. The problem is most business owners don't track any of that. So they get frustrated and assume the podcast isn't working because they haven't gotten a client directly from an episode. I created the podcast ROI metrics tracker to fix that. It's a free tool that helps you track 50 plus non-traditional metrics so that you can finally see the real return your podcasting is doing for your business. You can grab it right now at podcastabundance.com/ROI-tracker. All right, back to the episode. That's actually where some folks get hung up is and I'm not saying don't do research, right? But the folks that discover a niche for whatever reason, are passionate about it, know they can serve those people, and they just dive in, typically are headstrong enough to stick with it long enough to make some traction. Whether that traction includes, you're paying for ads or paying for spots, you've got software downloaded, you're a member of Podmatch, whatever it is that you're doing to spend to get that traction, that's fine. Whereas there's people just popping in my head right now that are like, I want to do a podcast, it's interesting. There's all these that are similar to what I would do. And they get hung up in that. And it really just almost is like a prerequisite to failure because you are pushing pause on something that you were initially excited about. And you may never overcome that rather than just jumping in, getting started. Because you're right. You mentioned a friend said, hey, you need to do this for about 3 years. My recommendation to people is 18 months because by the 18-month mark, you have some evidence that this is working. Maybe it's small, maybe it's large, but the next 18 months is pretty much going to happen because you've been doing it for 18 months. It's like, you've built that habit already. So I love that someone gave you that advice. And I think that's really great advice to share. So,
and can I interrupt you just one thing? Because I think I want to go there about one thing, because one of the things I hear people talk about pod fade all the time.
Oh yeah.
And that's a real thing. And the reason that they pod fade is they don't know what their measurement criteria is. Mm-hmm. And I'm a little bit unusual in this one. I don't mind throwing money at this. I have spent money on Overcast ads. I've built YouTube channels. My faith channel now hit 225,000 subscribers. My content creators show, which I just launched in December, we're at 56,000 subscribers. A lot of that's because I'm paying for advertising, and I'm not afraid to do that. If you want this to grow to be a replacement for a paycheck or a big side hustle or actually a replacement for your main job, you're going to have to work very hard at this. Listen, I do 4 shows. Every day, I spend about 3 hours a day in content creation because I see that that's what it's going to take to get me where I need to be. If I just said, I'm going to do 7 episodes and let's see if anything happens, it's not going to work. And people come time amazed by, I spent $25,000 on my studio because I want to come into a space where I've got a prompter in front of me. I've got a nice set. The sound is excellent. But again, now I'm not telling everybody to go out there and spend that kind of money. Don't misunderstand me, Virginia. But if you want this to be successful, think about all the money you spend to build your financial practice. And then you want to do this podcast on a shoestring budget. I hear people talk about, I'm a co-host on something called the Podcasting Morning Chat. And we talk this all the time. People say, well, what's the best software to use that's free? What's the best thing to use that's free? Well, you get what you pay for. And if you're doing a hobby show, great, that's fine. But if you're going to buy tools, and I call these tools that we're working with, you're going to spend some money on those. I've got Mac computers. I've got the best camera. I've got good Shure mics. I've got shotgun mics. I'm not using a shotgun mic today, but I have a shotgun mic over my head. I've got good lighting. All those things you spend money on. So if you're a financial professional listening to this right now, how much did you spend on your computers? How much did you spend on your office furniture? If you want to take this content creator thing seriously, put some money on the line. Hire coaches. I got talent coaches. I got people that I work with to help me speak better. All those things you got to build into that.
Absolutely. And there's 100% a place for the lower cost, mics even, and equipment and production. You can find somebody on Upwork for dollars. But as you progress into the journey, for sure, there needs to be some spend. And there's a recent episode of mine even talking about what the SBA recommends for small businesses to spend on marketing and how much of that is your podcast budget? How much of that is other advertising marketing that you're doing? What's the mix here? And I think that's really important to evaluate.
And Virginia, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm looking at every dollar I spend in podcasting is marketing dollars. And it's building my brand. It's building my practice. And I'm starting to see results from it. But again, I'm about 2 years plus into it. And I've already made the commitment that this is a 3-year project. At the same time, though, you've got to start looking at what is this doing? Because that's the other thing I see content creators not doing. They'll say to me, I'll say to them, how was last month? Oh, I had a great month, Ralph. I brought in $10,000. I'm like, okay, that's great. But how much did you keep? And then they look at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't really care what your gross revenue numbers are. That doesn't tell me anything. So when I work with content creators, I try to build a system so they can measure, is this really income replacement? Am I getting anywhere with this?
So let's circle back for a sec to what you said earlier about the podcast being top of funnel discovery versus mid funnel nurturing. With your show, what is it that you're seeing, and has it changed over the time that you've been podcasting?
Absolutely. So I went into it with the idea that this is going to be top of the funnel. I'm going to put this content out there and people are going to, I got to have this. It doesn't work for me like that. To me, it's a reinforcement because I hear people say this all the time. Oh, I heard about you from such and such, and then I went and listened to 10 of your shows. Or I heard about you and I went and read your book. I've written 3 books. Or I heard about this and I went and watched your YouTube. Or I read your blogs. I looked at your websites. Those things are all reinforcements. And I think a lot of people go into this with the idea that just put it out there, somebody's going to come to it, and that's where they're going to discover them. That may happen occasionally, but that's not what happened to me. That's not been my journey. And the thing is, like, if that's what you're looking for, you're going to get discouraged because you're going to be like, wait a minute, my download numbers aren't great. But the coolest thing for me is seeing that shows I did 3 years ago are still getting downloads now. And that tells me that people are going back and saying, oh, that guy Ralph knows what he's talking about. Let me go listen to a year's worth of his shows. Or, oh, he's got this topic. Titles are huge. Like, I've actually changed my daily show. Every title is a question. And that's been super effective. That little change doubled my downloads in 3 weeks. Because people are scrolling through this and they pick up a question of, how do you and your spouse get on the same page financially? You see that and you're like, oh, my husband and I, or my wife and I were just arguing about money the other night. Ralph's got a solution to that? Oh, well, I got to listen to this. I like what you said. Middle funnel, I think, is where it is, or even bottom of the funnel, to be honest with you. And I think for financial professionals, it's more of the bottom of the funnel, just building and maintaining those relationships. I think that's really, but I think it's a different mindset, because the mindset that most people think is the top of the funnel, it's the starting point. Then you bring them in with a $27 deal on it. I'm not sure that works that great anymore.
We should highlight what you said about how people are discovering you in different places, maybe on a different show you were on, or from your book, or a radio station, or all these other marketing things that you're doing, maybe spend, maybe not. And all of that accumulates as traction, right? Is the result. So you take this 10% of your revenue or whatever you're going to go off of, that is your marketing spend. And you don't just throw all that in one place, right? You have it divided up into a multitude of things, maybe some towards publishing, maybe some towards your Facebook ads, maybe, just all the different places that you could do things. And someone discovers something somewhere and it leads them to the next thing. And eventually they land on your podcast. And then that's where they can search by topic. They can go back to the beginning and see what you sounded like years ago and laugh at you or whatever.
Oh man, I go back every once in a while, Virginia, when I want to have a good cry, because I go like, who was listening to this? This is horrible. It's a train wreck. I wasn't using Descript at the time. There was no studio sound. Mm-hmm. I wasn't even looking at the camera when I started doing video stuff. Mm-hmm. No, but I think you're right on point with that. I think that's where you have to go. And the thing that's interesting about this, with this new show, The Content Creator's Accountant, I am just trying to build relationships one person at a time. So I'm really leaning into LinkedIn as an example. I go onto LinkedIn, I say, give me a list of people who are podcast hosts. And I just reach out to them, say, hey, I'm Ralph. I'm the Content Creator's Accountant. I love what you're doing. I listen to your show. If I can ever help you in the future, let me know. Bang, on to the next person. It doesn't cost me a dime. It costs me a little sweat equity and time. But what's interesting about that, I just had a discovery call with somebody yesterday. She's in Mexico. And she says, oh, I saw you on LinkedIn and I got a question for you. Can I ask you a quick question? Sure. So I offered her a 15-minute discovery call. And next thing you know, she says, well, can I work with you all the time? I'm like, yes, that'd be great. And it all started with recognizing who she was through podcasting and just doing a simple LinkedIn, hey, I'd love to connect with you. It can really be that simple.
Well, and that speaks to, furthering the conversation of, yes, you pay for various marketing things. You're doing a podcast, you're managing a YouTube channel, marketing can be everything, but we can't just let that stuff just stand alone. There's still this messaging component that has to be happening in the background. A lot of times on this show, we're talking about your email list, but LinkedIn and DMing on social media is also a huge way that people make sales. And that is one way that content creators are familiar with making sales, because a lot of them have various auto message features. If you like their posts, then you get this DM that says, thanks for liking it. And then suddenly you're down this rabbit trail and you're buying something from them, and it's magic. But if some of us could implement some of that messaging feature, whether it's manual, like what you're talking about, or whether somehow you've set it up automatically, there's a lot to be said for that.
But it's also a mindset shift, because I think so many people go into, I have to sell you something. I have to sell you something. Stop doing that. It doesn't work. Build the relationship. Your content can do the same thing. I am so frustrated with all these ads I hear on everybody's shows. It's driving me crazy. People are fed up with ads. Speak to them, build the relationship, and then they're going to want to call you because they're going to I love Ralph. I got to get in touch with Ralph. He can help me. He talks about this stuff all the time, and he's never asked me to buy anything. Guess what? If you're going to be an effective salesperson, you don't have to ask for them to buy anything. Build the relationship first.
Let's dive into the difference between someone's show who doesn't have a call to action on it, and maybe you can define that a little bit, like sales versus call to action. Like, it doesn't always have to be buy my thing. Or someone's show who has buy my thing and very clear instructions on what the audience should do. I feel like you have a strategy here.
I do. And it's funny because on this podcasting morning chat, on Thursdays, we do evaluation of shows. And I got to be honest with you, I am totally turned off if in the first 30 seconds you're telling me about your coaching program and you can do coaching. I'm sorry, I'm done. I'm checking out. That's my personal opinion. I'm not saying it's not effective, but it doesn't work for me. I think a more effective way is give me something. Tell me something. Take away pain from me. Show me how to do something. For example, today I just recorded a show about the home office deduction. Very in the weeds tax kind of issue. I start off the show. Here's what I'm going to talk about today. Here's what you're going to take away from that. And listen, right now, if you don't want to be bothered with this, if you want to talk to me one-on-one, here's a link. Hit me up. We'll do a discovery call. Now let me show you how to do this. So I give that opportunity. I'm not trying to sell them anything. I'm showing them, hey, this is complicated, but I could call Ralph. I can listen to his show, or I can do both. I think that's effective. But if you start off with, I would really love for you to buy my coaching program for just $27, it's not going to work. I think a call to action is effective if it's a call to action to reinforce your relationship with them. If you're just trying to sell them something, I'm sorry, Virginia, maybe you disagree with me, but I just don't think that's effective.
Yeah, so a lot of times the call to action that I'm really looking for in shows is that baby step, like what you're saying. Either it's a free call, it's a free download, it's a free e-course. It doesn't require monetary commitment up front, and it should, if structured properly, it should further that relationship, right? Like if I listened and you were offering a list of excellent bank accounts for small business owners, and some of them earn interest, or some of them do this or that or whatever. I could download this free thing. Ideally, why would I download that if I wasn't looking for a bank account? Right? So you're solving my problem, getting me down the road with just a baby step. And then I am magically also on your email list at that point, because I have given you my email so I could get this free thing. So that's usually the call to action or step that I'm looking for when people say, gosh, I've been podcasting for a year and I'm just not getting clients from my show. That's what I'm looking for. I'm diving in. I'm saying, like, are the topics clear? Is the show name clear? Starting at the top, what we talked about earlier. And then in the actual content, I'm listening for those cues, call to action. How helpful is this? Is this just people having a conversation and I don't know where it's going? Or is there a structure to it that is guiding me and helping me in some way? And oh, by the way, here's this free thing that helps you even further.
And I agree with you. And I think that so many people have a show about nothing, or they have a show that doesn't reinforce what they're trying to sell. If you're trying to sell something, if your goal, talk about that in your show. I think it's great. You want to do this, that, and the other thing. But if it's not reinforcing your business, stop talking about it. If you've got people coming in to interview because, oh, I'd really like to talk to this person, if that's not serving your audience, stop doing it. Another thing, as you talk about lead magnets and things like that, is try to remove the friction. Because I have seen some of these lead magnets where you got to stand on one leg, hop across this, go through this one, sign up for that one. And it's like you give up, you're done. If you can't make it simply one click, people aren't going to do it. So talk to your audience about what you want them to do and make that the content. If you want to have a second show, like for example, I got another show, like I said, it's a weekly sermon show, has absolutely nothing to do. It's a passion of mine. It's a mission field for me. I'll talk about what I want to on that show. But on my content creator show, I'm talking about topics that are relevant to the content creator who is tuned in to hear about how can I improve my accounting systems to make my life better. And that's what I think content creators need to understand is talk to your audience about what's important to them. The other thing with the lead magnet, the other thing that people don't think about is you could build some affiliate income there as well. If you put on the lead magnet things that you could build affiliate, I disclose those things. I think it's a good idea. But it's a way for something to be bringing something in the door. It doesn't have to be this huge sponsor. It doesn't have to be CPM is dead. I don't want to get into the jargon talk, but you're going to get $3 for 1,000 downloads. I'm not spending much time chasing after that. So I'm either selling my own product, I'm selling affiliate, or I'm trying to build that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, dive into just the affiliate piece for a second, because I think for most financial professionals, they are not inherently content creators. They're trying to get into that space. So they're like, yeah, but what does affiliate mean? How do people do that? How would I incorporate affiliate income on my lead magnet?
I was not a content creator either. I went to college. I got my master's degree in accounting. I talk about things that happen in my practice every day. This one had this happen. I don't use names, obviously. This one had this happen. But what you can do is you build relationships with the products that your clients are going to use. For example, a lot of my clients use QuickBooks, Intuit QuickBooks online. So I build an affiliate relationship with that. So every time somebody signs up for that, I get paid. So if you're a financial professional, think about what those products are that your customers or your potential clients are going to use. I just made a relationship with a banking company called Relay Bank. Same thing. It's affiliate income. Is it growing like gangbusters? No. But I serve a need. The customer sees that need. They go out and do it. I might get a couple bucks from it. Multiply that a couple hundred times a year, and that's serious affiliate income. And the other thing about that is it's reinforcing the relationship. They had a problem. You met that need. You solved the problem for them. They're going to tell 10 other people about it as well. So that's why I am really keen on either selling your own products or building that affiliate income.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Or both, right?
Both. I mean, you can do both. Absolutely. And listen, that's the thing about content creators. Have 12 revenue streams. I think that's fantastic. Don't put all your eggs in one basket either, though. Like I see a lot of content creators like they're sold on YouTube. Well, that's great until YouTube shuts down your channel. Or they're sold on TikTok until the last couple of days when TikTok got really weird. And like all of a sudden stuff that I was getting views on has 0 views. You can't live on that platform. You got to build your brand. That's why one of the main things I do is I build a website for each of my shows. I don't want to drive people to a platform. I want to drive them to me. I want to drive the brand to me. And once I do that, then they get the email sign up. I got their email list. I can direct market to them. All those things tie in together, but don't just put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so on that note, as someone is like, okay, I have an accounting business, I'm going to launch a podcast. I also see the value of the YouTube channel and, getting monetized there. I can do this affiliate thing. They're just like stacking everything that you're saying. How did you approach that process? Because you can't do it all at once. And or how have you seen it best done through content creators? Because again, these financial folks are not necessarily content creators. So they're like, how can I do all this? Like, this is overwhelming.
Well, I think first thing is you got to pick a lane. You can't do all the social media. I have a team of 12 people that work for me now. So I have somebody that does this. I have somebody that does that. But when you're first starting out, pick a lane. Maybe for you, it's YouTube. Great. Lean into the YouTube. Or maybe it's LinkedIn. Lean into the LinkedIn. Or it's TikTok. Whatever those things are, lean into those things. You can't be everywhere if you're just doing it yourself. So that's the way I would say to do that is start out, pick a lane, focus on that. Once you build that, then maybe you say, okay, well, let me try this other lane because I might be another audience over here. I think the problem is so many people get burned out because they're trying to post everywhere. And that's not an effective strategy, especially if you don't have a team. I honestly think you should get a team, but I would say focus on one lane, do what that thing, be a master in that area. Then you can look at other things.
Absolutely. Well, and that's where, like, for my team, I've structured things where folks can just sign up for editing. Then you can, willy-nilly say, hey, I need a strategy session. Like, I feel like something's missing here. We can go in and work and revise things. Then if you want to add on, social media repurposing out of your podcast episode, okay, you can add that when you're ready. Like, there are ways to step up into production. You don't have to start day one hiring 12 people. But yeah, take it one lane at a time. I think that's really great advice.
Yeah, and you pay with your time or you pay with your money. And that's the other thing you got to realize is that you pay with one or the other. And the other thing, here's another thing I think content creators are getting all tripped up on. They love AI. I love AI as well. But the problem with AI, it's putting out a lot of garbage. So if you think you're going to record something and it's going to beautifully repurpose into these beautiful shorts, most of the time they suck. Not to be vulgar, but they just don't. They're not great. And people are like, well, I want to record on Riverside because it gives me all these things. Great. Most of them aren't very good. Stop doing that. AI is not the end all be all. Here's a big takeaway for today. Here's the benefit to the financial professional. As a financial professional, the relationships and the things that you've been through will never be replicated by AI because you've got stories. You've been in the trenches. I talk about that all the time on my show. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen pretty much everything. You go out there and Google AI and look at your chat GPTs and your Geminis and Groks. I use them all. I get it. It's never going to be able to take that personal, oh, I remember when I worked with this client that did this, or I remember. So there's a huge opportunity for content creators to speak from the heart and speak from the mind of the things they've already seen. Because that's the battle that we're fixing to get into, is this battle of AI slop versus people who actually been there and know what the war stories are and they can share those with their audience.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you for sharing that because I completely agree. Even if you're going to use AI to help script or outline your episode or whatever, it has to start from a client experience, something that you have firsthand knowledge of. And if you want the thing to script out this story in better language than what you could put it in, okay, fine. But you have to sit there and feed it that story and tell the lesson learned from it. You have to be really clear about what happened when and give it all the details for it to produce a great script for you. And that is going to be the difference.
And see, I found myself in that trap, Virginia. With doing so much content work, I said, well, I'll just go AI. I'll create a prompt. It'll write my scripts. And I leaned into that for a while. And I was like, this is terrible. Like, this is not Ralph. This is not me. Sure. Was it grammatically correct? Was it impactful? Sure. Was it full of, I mean, I can make AI make you cry, but it wasn't Ralph. And that's been part of the evolution I've been through as well. Like I spent a lot of money on this teleprompter that I don't really use anymore because what I have found is it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to edit out every little nuanced thing. You're a human being. The people listening to you expect you to trip up on your words sometimes. That's your charm. That's what makes you who you are. I speak loud. I speak quick. That's who I am. If I sit here like Bueller, monotone, they'd be like, who is this guy? I don't want to listen to him. The truth is, if they want to just go get information, they can go on Google search and find information. If you want them to come to you, share the experience with them. Be that character, if you will. I'm not saying to go be somebody you're not, but be that person that's bringing that relationship to the table, because that's how you're going to grow this. And listen, you're going to grow one viewer at a time, one audience member at a time, one client at a time, and you got to be okay with that.
Absolutely. As with everything, it is not a quick hit, fast, famous game here. It is a long-term, slow play, sustainable game that you have to create for your business and yourself.
And Virginia, I say this to content creators all the time. They'll tell me, oh, Ralph, I got 1 million followers on YouTube. I'm like, oh, great. How much is that paying you? Nothing. Oh, well, then you don't have anything. If you don't have money in your bank account, I'm not impressed by that. Is that great? Sure. I got my silver play button when I hit 100,000. I'm at 225 now. That's great. That's nice. Vanity metric. Didn't put any money in my bank account. So, and that's the problem is content creators get stuck on these things. Well, I've got 10,000 people on my email list. Okay. Are they buying anything from you? That's great, but are you being effective in actually driving something for what your avatar, what you want to do with your content creation?
I don't work with anybody that is working for sponsorships right now. Everybody that I'm working with are selling their own services and products through their own business.
Let's shout it from the rooftops. Downloads are dead.
Yeah.
They're dead. I'm sorry. That doesn't mean
it doesn't
anything.
do anything for your business.
Downloads are absolutely a worthless metric. You could have 100 downloads to an episode and make 6-7 figures a year if you're talking to the right people and you're putting a product in front of them that they need. I'm so sick and tired of downloads because that's what everybody talks about. And listen, I was guilty of that. I was checking my Captivate statistics 10 times a day. Oh, how many do I have now? How many do I have now? I had to stop because I needed a 12-step program from Captivate because I couldn't take it anymore because the numbers weren't growing. And it's funny, Dave Jackson, the School of Podcasting, we do a weekly call together and he says, Ralph, he says, you're growing by 20%. I'm like, yeah, but big deal. I started off here. I got that there 20%. He says, you don't understand. That's huge.
It is. But until your bank account is growing by 20%, it doesn't feel any different.
It means nothing. It's a vanity metric. That's great. I got 1 million downloads. Fantastic. And I am bankrupt. What's your point?
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So I want folks who want to check out your show, want to book a free call with you, book, anything that you have to offer. I want them to be able to find and follow you. Where should they do that?
Easiest thing to do is go to contentcreatorsaccountant.com. Again, that's contentcreatorsaccountant.com. Because again, when I launched the new show, who am I speaking to? So again, contentcreatorsaccountant.com. And here's a little inside tip. If you go to contentcreatorsaccountant.com/help me, you can schedule a free 15-minute discovery call with me. You tell me what's going on with your world. I'll tell you if I can help you. No fee. Just we'll have a conversation. We'll see if the relationship works and we'll go from there. I don't have a big coaching program to sell you. I'm not going to try to sell you a tiny offer. I'm not going to sell you anything. Just, I want to make a relationship with you. I understand what your struggles are and let's see if we can work together so I can help you get to that next level.
As with most scenarios in life, maybe you're great at advising others with their personal finances or how to get out of debt or whatever your financial thing is. But then when it comes to your own business or finances or whatever, you're thinking, I don't know if I'm practicing what I preach. So that's where Ralph can come in. And I just really appreciate everything that you've shared today.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Podcasting for Financial Professionals. Before you go, make sure you're actually measuring what your podcast is producing. Not by vibes, not by download spikes, but by the actual outcomes it's creating. Authority, visibility, and leads for your business. Your podcast is doing more than you think. You just need a way to see it. That's why I created the Podcast ROI Metrics Tracker, a free tool that helps you track the real return your podcasting for business is creating. From authority and visibility to leads and opportunities across many categories. Download it right now at podcastabundance.com/ROI-tracker.